Hey guys, welcome back to Ghost Gambles and Brandie Bets. This is week 4 for us. We are in week 5 of the college football season. How are you tonight, Brandie?
Hey, I'm doing good, especially after a 4-1 week.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. Congratulations to Brandie. Hope everybody tells she had a huge week. It's much deserved. She's been very close to having some big weeks before that. And so, yeah, let's go ahead and talk about your 4-1 week. Whatever you want to do, just recap all 5.
Yeah, honestly, like I'm pretty happy with how the card turned out, obviously, profit and stuff, but yeah, I Tulane first half they covered. If anybody was watching that game, they got a pick six. And then had a couple of good defensive stands to be able to cover that first half spread. So that one felt really good. I don't think Wyoming or North Texas covering against Wyoming was like ever in question. Wyoming continues to have just a horrible offense. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at stuff that you may want to bet. I don't think it matters how big they make some of these spreads or whatever with Wyoming. Their struggles have continued. Georgia Tech was my one play plus 10.5. They lost by 12. They're actually tied going into the fourth quarter. And they had a little bit of a kick six action with a field goal returned for a touchdown and just really never recovered from that. So that was the one bummer there. And they actually looked like pretty decent throughout that game. So I was watching it. In the crazy game in Michigan State, Boston College, Michigan State covered the plus 6.5 and honestly should have won outright. Really good, just back and forth battle. But Boston College's offense, they actually like had it rolling a little bit there at the end of the game that helped them win it. Michigan State's quarterback, he's just not good. So
he's not there yet, for sure. Yeah, I mean, there's moments that look really good, and then the way that fourth quarter, I only ended up seeing highlights of that one, but I was definitely sweating it the whole time for you. But go ahead. You have what, one more, two? Yeah, one more.
Yeah, I'm trying to look up what my last one was. I kind of forgot at this point now.
Tulane, the first half.
Oh no,
right?
I talked about that one. Oh, Tennessee. That's yeah.
I wish I had forgotten about that one.
Ghost took Oklahoma first half spread, and I took Tennessee full time. And honestly, the game was a lot lower. I knew it would be low scoring because Oklahoma's defense is really good. But it was a little bit more lower scoring than I kind of expected. And I thought Heupel would keep on the gas a little bit. I had to sweat it out there at the end for a little bit. I was like, oh gosh, is Oklahoma gonna get a garbage time touchdown? Yeah, I was a little worried about that. But no, Tennessee kind of, even though the score may not entirely look like it, Tennessee just dominated from start to finish in that game. So I think they're a real playoff. I think they're definitely going to make the playoffs if they continue playing how they are and are kind of a real contender, possibly at a national championship, maybe.
Is it hard to say that as an Auburn fan?
I actually don't really have any harsh feelings towards Tennessee, especially because I live here and I've never had like a bad experience with Tennessee fans before. And I kind of like don't like them in basketball, but football, I guess because my entire life they've really not been good. And so I've never had a bad experience with them, and them winning makes Alabama fans mad. So,
pros and cons there. I get that. Brother
right.
Sam, we are 4-0 against the spread, so I can't sit there and just say, with confidence, even though the spread's pretty large, I can see Mississippi State getting inside that number. Not easily, but I think it's just as likely as Texas covering, to be honest. But that game's not involved on my card this week, so you trust your instincts on that one, Sam. To recap, a massive 4-1 week for Brandie. Brandie in week 1 went 2-2. Brandie in week 3 went 2-3, and then last week 4-1. So 8-6 overall for Brandie after a big week. And of her 6 losses, I honestly feel like 3 of them are just like, how did we get there?
Yeah, I feel like really the only bad read I feel like I've had, I think I've had like maybe 2 bad reads. One of them was the Florida Texas A&M game, and then there was another game, I don't remember what it was, but I feel like for the most part, they haven't been bad reads completely, so.
No, I'm absolutely with you on that one. You've had more kind of tougher beats than I have for sure, but to recap myself right here, I after a 1-4 week, I guess week 1 for us, but week 2 slate, then a 4-1, completely flipped the switch there. I had a 3-2 week here. I did have the aforementioned Oklahoma +4 in the first half. As soon as Jackson Arnold fumbled inside the 5-yard line, I assumed that we were pretty cooked there. If they score there, would have felt, bless you. If they score there, I would have felt really, really good about it. But Jackson Arnold did what he did, and he's not the starting quarterback for Oklahoma anymore. My other loss, Ohio +20.5. I'll be honest, I was kind of shocked the way that Kentucky jumped all over them. I thought that Kentucky would struggle to move the ball. They looked a little better on offense. Dane Key had a big day. They wiped the floor with Ohio. So those were my 2 losses. My 3 wins, Rutgers +3.5. They went outright. They get outscored 19-0 in the fourth quarter. Well, no, wait, what was it? 19-3? I don't, because then Rutgers 19-3. Rutgers had the field goal to end to win it. Yeah, that was sketchy. I didn't realize that was happening because I was at DKR and doing pregame stuff.
I texted you before that quarter too, and I was like, Rutgers looks great right now. And then that happened, and I was like, oh my gosh, please still cover.
Yeah, that's when I looked at the score and I was like, oh, we're good here. Like, they're just gonna run clock, and Virginia Tech's not good against the run anyways. Like, this won't be a sweat. But they came alive a little bit in the fourth quarter there, and I didn't realize I had a sweat, but we had a sweat. But it's a win in the end. And then SMU in the 2.5 against TCU. If you watched this channel last week, I was pretty skeptical on this, but I did have a feeling. TCU off a tough emotional loss against Central Florida. SMU in a bye week. I believe a bye week. But yeah, SMU whooped that tail. That was awesome to see. Scored over 60 points. First time I checked that score, I was like, "There's no way this is real. There's no way they are doing this to TCU. not like this." It was very real. It was spectacular. But then the final one I had, Texas Tech -3 at home against the Sun Devils of Arizona State. I believe it was an 8-point Tech win. They kind of controlled that game start to finish. A little bit dicey at the end. But yeah, shout out Texas Tech. You redeemed yourselves completely. The last couple weeks, we had the over with North Texas. That was easy. We had an Arizona State, relatively easy. I've now officially forgiven you for the Wazoo game where we took. I forgive you for that. We've moved on from that, and part of me is like, hey, that Big 12 championship prediction for the Red Raiders. I don't feel as good about it as I did preseason, but hey, they're 1-0 in the conference, and it's hard to win it if you lose at home to Arizona State, to be honest. But okay, so a 4-1 week for me, or for you, Brandie, a 3-2 week for me. I just kind of said, you're 8-6, I'm 8-7, so overall we're 16-13 there. So yeah, after a 3-6 week 1, we've heated up a little bit, and I do have company. Hey, buddy. Hold on 1 second, okay. And buddy wants chocolate milk, and so 16-13. Go ahead.
Oklahoma fan here saying bet against OU this week, and I would not bet on Auburn at all right now. Yeah.
It is tough. It is tough. But I will say, preseason, I guaranteed an Oklahoma loss, and some Sooner fans have not forgotten it. I was told last week that if OU wins, they're coming for me. And this was like Sunday after they lost to Tennessee game. I was like, don't take your frustration out with OU football on me, but it's tough. The offense for Oklahoma doesn't look good. Michael Hawkins had some type of life at the end of the Tennessee game. But I don't know, D. I understand why y'all are being kind of down and negative right now. It's hard for me to see Auburn losing 3 home games in a row. Cal, Arkansas, now this one. But I get it. Oh, any updates, Sam? If you have any updates for me, drop them in the comments, please, on the old injury updates for the SEC, in particular the guys in burnt orange. That would be lovely. But sorry, I'm texting my daughter so she can fulfill the chocolate milk request real quick. But so let's go ahead to this week. Before we get into our personal plays and our cards for the week, let's talk a little about the game everybody's talking about. Alabama and Georgia. Georgia travels to Tuscaloosa. One of the bigger regular season games that I can remember in a very, very long time. How are you feeling about it? What are your thoughts on the Tide and the Dogs?
Yeah, honestly, like preseason, if you would have asked me about this game, I would tell you that I think Georgia's going to go into Tuscaloosa and just absolutely wax Alabama. But actually, I'm more confident in this Alabama team right now than I am this Georgia team. Georgia's a little bit banged up. And really on offense, like Alabama doesn't have to do anything except for have a couple of explosive plays, which is what they've done in every game that they've had. They don't rely like on the passing game unless it is for that. So the only thing is, though, that Alabama hasn't really been tested yet, in my opinion, and Georgia has already twice now. They looked really good against Clemson, and then obviously they struggled a little bit against Kentucky. I do think Kentucky has a better defense than Alabama, though. So Alabama hasn't been tested from like a true deep threat quarterback or just like a decent quarterback in general. When they played Wisconsin, Van Dyke got hurt. He tore his ACL in that game. And so that I think Alabama's defense or secondary is a big question mark right now. And so I really do think this game is going to come down to who has the better quarterback play. Like, is it going to be Carson Beck or Jalen Milroe? So I don't have a play or even a lean on that game, but I do think this could be like a wake-up call for DeBoer to be like, hey, this is the SEC. This is big boys football. It's not like what it was in Washington. But also Georgia, like historically, has just like kind of struggled with Alabama when they've played them. They kind of have their kryptonite with them. So I don't know. With all the injuries that Georgia has, if their defensive lineman is healthy, I forgot his name, Mikey Williams, then I would lean Georgia in this game, but they're just so banged up. Also at the same time, though, I'm pretty sure both teams are coming off of a bye into this game, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, so that's going to be really interesting to see. A lot of hype around this game. I don't know. I would say I lean Georgia, but they're favored on the road, and like I don't think Alabama's been a home underdog since like 2007 or something like that. I saw today. So
2007.
Yeah, so I think Carson Beck has a little bit more of a passing threat than Jalen Milroe has, but I don't know. But Jalen Milroe has a better supporting cast, I think, than what Carson Beck has. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on the game?
Well, like you said, Alabama hasn't really been tested by a great passing attack or good quarterback. But I'm still not super convinced on. I mean, Carson Beck's a great player, but I don't know if they're Georgia. They want to play the style of football that's really going to take advantage consistently of Alabama's secondary. Obviously going to try to run the ball first. I lean Alabama, but at the same time, I love Jalen Milroe. I think he's going to be the best player on the field Saturday. And
I think Ryan Williams
be the guy. Do you know how old he is? I heard he's 17.
I know. That's all they talk about.
All right. Everybody. But I like this Alabama team. I really do. I did have them winning the SEC preseason. I had them winning this game. So I'm sticking with that. Like Matt's saying here, I'm with you right here, Matt. That offense hasn't been super impressive, but they did whip Clemson around. Clemson's looked a lot better the last few weeks.
They have.
We'll see. So I like you. I don't have an official play on this. I won't bet this game. I would lean Alabama just because of Jalen Milroe and Ryan Williams, of course. But we'll see. It's going to be a fantastic game. Definitely going to be watching that one, checking it out. Are there any other big games on the slate? Like, not obviously that big.
I think we're going to talk about the other two big ones, or kind of two big ones in our picks, which would be Penn State, Illinois, and then Kentucky, Ole Miss. And I really don't know if there's much else on the slate this week outside of those. I guess there are a couple of ranked matchups, I believe, that wouldn't have been expected to be ranked matchups. But let me just. Oh yeah, Notre Dame, Louisville, but we're going to talk about that one in our picks too.
This one's going to be coming up, Mr. Sam, and then the other ranked matchup you talked about will be as well. So yeah.
The only one we're not talking about is Kansas State and Oklahoma State. Technically, that's a top 25 matchup.
Like I told you, I kind of like Oklahoma State outright in that one. Once again, nothing official, but until like you called it, you said see what Avery does when he has to throw the ball, and they're forced. Teams are forcing him to beat them with his arm, and man, I did not expect BYU to do what they did in that one.
It went from like 0 to 100 really fast in that game. I don't know if I think you were probably still at Texas when that game was happening, but it was like 6-0 or something like that, and then just 31-6. Like it just like in the blink of an eye, it was crazy. I don't know if anybody had BYU being 4-0 at this point in the season. So
not with that schedule, no, definitely not. No, not a chance. I guarantee you, no one in Big 12 did. I mean, there's no way they BYU being 4-0. Like, shout out to them. I do think they lose in Waco this week.
Yeah, a ranked team being an underdog on the road to a team that's not very good.
Always a sign.
Yeah. I'm staying away from that from like a betting standpoint. Obviously, in our Pick'em League, we'll have to pick in that game, but I lean Baylor solely on the fact that it scares me to take a ranked team that is an underdog on the road against a non-ranked team, just from a pure betting standpoint.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. That's definitely very trappish. It feels a little ratty. So, but yeah, shout out us. We've recovered well. We've got a total of 10 plays between us. We also have a guest picker coming on here momentarily. So me and Brandie and we're going to get to it. And whenever he's able to get on, we'll throw him in here for a few minutes. So, of course, ladies first, and you have the hot hand. But wait, we're missing one thing. We're missing something. There's something we didn't discuss. We now have a new leader in our 56-person Pick'em group. Brandie had been flirting with the top spot the last couple of weeks. She's been quite consistent, 15-10 over the first 4 weeks in the Pick'em League. Good enough to have her in first place. I'm going to stop asking you how you did every week because I know already. 15 is automatic apparently. But
regression is coming. I'm a little scared for what that's going to look like when it does hit.
It's definitely going to. It feels like it's got a lot tougher from last week to this week as far as having to pick 25 games in a Pick'em League. There's some tough spots in there, and even Brandie and we've kind of, she likes someone, I like the other side. It's happened 3 or 4 times more this week than I feel like it normally would. But good luck us. Brandie leads. I think I hopped inside the top 20. I had a 14 and 11 week. I need that like 18 or 19 point week to get over that 7 win first week that I have. That hurt a lot, put me well behind the 8 ball. But we're just a few spots out of the money spots, the places that cash, and there's a long ways to go. So I'm very optimistic. Going to be really difficult to catch Brandie though, because I don't think she's slowing down. So congratulations on your 4-1 week, and congratulations on the Pick'em lead. Go ahead and start us off. Give the folks your first play on the card.
Yeah, so my first play, I'm going to start off with some Big 12 action here. And I know that they lost this weekend, and it was my lean last week that they would win, but I'm blaming it on the rain delay. Kansas -1.5 against TCU at home. I know Kansas lost to like a really pitiful West Virginia team this past week, but going into the rain delay, they were winning. And Jalen Daniels does look different this year, but this TCU team is horrible. Like, they are just not good. This is more of a fade of TCU than it is me putting like any faith and trust into Kansas. But both of these teams desperately need a win right now. And I just feel like Kansas has the better offense and the better defense. Their secondary is going to feast on that pitiful TCU offense. And I think Devin Neal is going to eat on the ground in the run game too. So I don't think Jalen Daniels is going to have to do as much as he's been asked to do against the opponents that they've had so far. I think this is going to be a heavy run game type of offensive game plan for Kansas. So I really like them to have a bounce back spot here. They need a win. Lance Leopold needs a win. I like him with this cast that he has on his team more than I like Sonny Dykes and the cast that he has on his team. So, yeah.
I like it. The way that these two programs have been trending over the last year and a half. I trust Coach Lance Leopold to get his guys ready off some tough losses a lot more than I trust Sonny Dykes to do so. I think that's a good play. Devin Neal's he's been being Devin Neal. It's just Jalen Daniels has had some costly turnovers. I mean, it's not like they're losing games in crazy fashion or blowout fashion, rather. Mm-hmm. Illinois, a late Jalen Daniels pick cost them that one, or maybe it was at the half. It was a pick 6. And then you lose the UNLV game. Shout out Matt Sluka. We both appreciate Matt Sluka for covering that Kansas game, Houston game as well. A lot of drama with the UNLV football program at the moment. Welcome to the new era of college football. I hope not, but depends who you talk to on that matter. And then of course, who was the last one? Yeah, the West Virginia game. Obviously, Kansas could have won that one, had the lead, just need one stop there at the end. Can't do so against the old Mountaineers. But I like it. What Kansas -1.5, Brandie's first play. Lock it in. Let's go. I love it. We've had different opinions on this game, and Brandie might also have a play from this game. So if you've been following us, you kind of know how this might end up going for me and how it goes for Brandie. But my first play on the card is the Ole Miss Rebs -17.5. Upon initial glance, this is a ton of points for Kentucky. They just played Georgia close. They just dominated Ohio. A lot of points. I don't think the styles mesh very well here with Kentucky. With Georgia. That's much more Kentucky style of fight. Hard, physical run battles. Not their offense. They don't mirror one another, but very similar styles. Ole Miss is going to play fast on offense. There's going to be a lot of possessions in this game. I don't think that Kentucky's going to be good enough to get enough first downs to really run the clock that they want to, the way they did against Georgia with a couple of long drives there in the first half. I think Ole Miss scores in the low 30s. I don't know if Kentucky scores twice, to be honest. I think Ole Miss is for real. And that's just my opinion. I think that Ole Miss blows out Kentucky. I think, that they prove, kind of like Tennessee, we talked about earlier, proving that they're kind of a contender. I think we see a lot from Lane Kiffin's Rebels this week. Kentucky's played them close at Ole Miss the last few times under Mark Stoops. I think Lane Kiffin's aware of that, and they attack, and hopefully they pull away late in this one. Right, Brandie?
Right. So he's saying that because I have on my card Kentucky first half +10.5. So hopefully there's a way both of us can cash, because there is. And I actually do like the full-time Ole Miss spread. Like, that doesn't bother me at all. But I do think since Ole Miss hasn't really played much of anybody yet, they've played Wake Forest and a bunch of nobodies, and Kentucky has played South Carolina, which was a horrible, horrible game for them. And they played Georgia really close. And so, one, they've already been tested a lot, but two, I think this is going to be an interesting matchup because Ole Miss has a super electric offense, and Kentucky's offense is okay. It's nothing to write home about, but Kentucky actually has a really, really good defense. And so I think that that's going to be enough to keep them in this game early. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's like a 14-7 game at halftime, or even like a 10-0 game at halftime, something along those lines. I think that Ole Miss is going to end up pulling away. Kind of how I did like your Oklahoma first half pick last week, and I kind of thought that it would be a lot closer in the first half. So I'm hoping I won't be on the bad side of a first half loss this week. But yeah, I mean, I just think this Kentucky defense is enough to keep Ole Miss's offense off the field and from scoring in the first half at least. I think that I wouldn't be surprised to see their defense kind of get a little exhausted in the second half. They're going to be out in the field a lot because Kentucky doesn't really have that much of an offense. But that is why I like Kentucky first half, not Kentucky full game.
I like it. I mean, I can totally see that playing out that way. 7-3 first half, 10-0, 13-7, something low scoring. I just don't see Kentucky moving the ball enough. Like you said, defense should be on the field a lot. So we're at odds again a little bit. And for full transparency, we've done this twice already. Brandie is 2-0 in these matchups. Last week with Tennessee -7.5. I had Oklahoma +1 or 4 in the first half. I also took North Carolina State +7.5. Brandie had Tennessee -7.5. Well, actually, I bet it when it was 10 for North Carolina State. So we could have both won in those matchups. Maybe this is our moment. But you are 2-0. But there are no Vols. There's no Tennessee Vols involved this time. Okay, so Nico's gone. I'm hoping he'll leave me alone. And with that being said, we're now 2 picks in for Brandie. I've got 1 pick in, but we do have our guest speaker here. I'm going to introduce you guys to Parker. And Parker's going to have a couple picks for you.
What's up, guys?
Hey, doing good. As you can see, Mr. Parker, he is on Twitter at Sweet Dollar Iced Tea. I feel like a lot of you guys may have heard of him, seen some of his work, and part of his work he does is some pretty good handicapping. The gentleman had a big 8-3 weekend last week against the spread. But welcome, Parker. You doing all right, sir?
Yeah, man, doing good. Doing good. I finally got to sit down and look at everything today, so got a handful of picks for you, and excited to be on this show.
Well, welcome, brother. Well, let's go ahead. Drop us your first pick, and we'll give you a little feedback on our side, and just get rocking, man, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, so the first pick that I have, I think they're a 2.5-point favorite. I'm just playing the money line. Duke hosts UNC minus 140.
Okay.
So a lot to like about this game. My model has them as a pick 'em on a neutral site. They're playing them at home. UNC defense is probably the worst I've ever seen it, which is that's pretty impressive.
That's a big, yeah.
They gave up 70 to James Madison last week. After the game, Mac Brown asked the team if he should resign. He had to kind of walk those comments back. North Carolina is the 41st FBS level team to allow 70-plus points in a game since 2012. The previous 40 went 13, 26, and 1 against the spread the following week.
Those are numbers we like. Okay.
Yeah. Also, a trend that I really liked, favorites that are seeking revenge for a 4-plus game losing streak in this rivalry, Duke versus UNC, are 74, 46, and 3 against the spread. So that's about 62%.
Yeah, elite. Yeah, absolutely.
I like what Malik Murphy is doing. I don't, as much as I love him because I'm biased as a Texas fan and want him to do well, I don't think he's quite elite, but he's doing really good things. I don't think that Duke's quite as good as they were, but UNC is just on a terrible path. I really like them here. I think people are taking UNC as an underdog, thinking that Duke is kind of having a bit of a walk it back kind of year, but they're really not. Currently undefeated. I really like them to get the job done here at home.
Yeah, I like it. Brandie, do you have any thoughts on the Blue Devils taking down the Tar Heels?
I like it. I mean, we all saw it happen to UNC last week. So, yeah, I've no qualms here. And I really don't think Duke has taken that big of a step back. Like, yeah, Riley Leonard went to Notre Dame. But like you mentioned, Malik Murphy's been doing fine there. Nothing to, like, write home about with him. But he hasn't really, like, made any huge mistakes yet. So I like it. I can get behind it for sure.
Absolutely. One of my favorite things about it is, the fact that Mac had those comments. He just gave up 70 to James Madison. And I'm not saying they'll quit on Mac, but at what point, if they got a little fight in there, Duke gets up a couple scores, does North Carolina lay down, make it a little easy? Because, things are not going well for them right now. That defense is really, really, really bad. There's no way around that. Great pick. I like it. Just so you know, Parker, we've had 2 picks from Brandie. I don't know if you could hear backstage. Brandie's 2 plays so far. Kentucky first half plus 10.5, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was it 10? Okay. And then Kansas minus 1.5 in their battle with, remind me one more time, it's slipping my mind.
TCU.
TCU, yes. Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking of people or a team that's melted, and that had Baylor on my mind, but that was last week on the Hail Mary. I wanted Baylor to win that game, but it's never bad to see Baylor go down, especially in dramatic fashion. Did y'all hear the commentary from that? Was it the radio guy or
the Baylor radio guy? That was incredible.
Did y'all see that? You haven't seen it?
I did.
Oh, I will send it to you. It is top tier gold. I almost cried.
Is it real time?
It's like hilarious.
Real time.
Like,
It's his reaction to the Hail Mary, and it's undefeated. It's great. And so, yeah, go Colorado in that one. My second pick, so far, guys, just to recap everything, we got Duke money line from Parker down here. Miss Brandie, we've got Kansas minus 1.5, Kentucky first half plus 10.5. Myself, Ole Miss minus 17.5. Now, the second play that I have is Minnesota plus 9.5. Probably doesn't make a lot of sense looking on it from the outside in. Minnesota just got dusted by Iowa. They did have a 14-7 lead going into the second half of that game and kind of just fell in their face. Couldn't stop Caleb Johnson. He ran all over them. And you're thinking like, okay, Michigan, who just ran all over USC, they get, 9.5. Just, it feels like it would be a little bit higher, maybe 12.5, 13. And I don't have a model. I just feel like that's what I kind of expected that line to be. I think Iowa rebounds, I think Minnesota rebounds a little bit from the Iowa loss. I think that they show up knowing that the only way they hang around in this game is if they can stop that run game from Michigan a little bit. It's an early kick after a big time win for Michigan last week. I know they always play at 11 a.m., but still, I feel like I'm not saying there will be complacency, but I like Minnesota to bounce back here, punch Michigan around a little bit in the run game till Michigan wakes up early. And I think it'll be a 1-score game. I really do. I know it doesn't make a lot of sense. It just feels like it's too easy for Michigan to cover that number. And Brandie kind of knows. It feels so easy. I'm kind of rocking the other side. I've talked myself into Minnesota playing good defense. Alex Orji hasn't proved anything with his arm. And so obviously Minnesota, as I said, the only way they stay in that game is to limit the run game. They'll commit full out to that. Force Orji to do something with the arm. I'm not convinced that he will. I trust Brosmer on the other side a little bit better. He turned the ball over twice last week in the loss to Iowa. I think he'll put a point of emphasis to play turnover-free football. Got to stop the run. Got to play turnover-free football. If they do that, I think they hang around. Minnesota plus 9.5. I'm locking it in for my second play. Tell me I'm crazy.
So I really like that. I had one stat that was a little concerning. Adjusted for opponents, Michigan has the 6th best running game. Adjusted for opponents, Minnesota has the 63rd best rush defense. I don't think that. My point is, I think it's going to be difficult for them to stop the run, even if they try. So I'm sorry if you don't hear crying downstairs.
Oh no, you're great, brother. I had to talk about chocolate milk on the show earlier, so you're good.
All right.
Yeah, that's the thing, man. They're going to have to commit crazy numbers, to stop that. And you're going to have to create some tackles for loss, because even when they're creating big numbers with that type of run defense, they're still going to give up some plays. And so that's kind of what Michigan did last week. They had the chunk plays against USC because they stayed so committed to the ground game. If Minnesota gets down early, they're going to get cooked in this game. So I'm banking on a very fast start for the Gophers.
Yeah.
Time will tell. But Brandie, what do you have as a third play on your card, ma'am?
Third play on my card, I have USC minus 15.5 versus Wisconsin. One thriller game against USC and Michigan this weekend. And if I know Wisconsin's coming off of a bye, but they're traveling out to California, and this Wisconsin team is just down bad, beaten, battered, very injured. Tyler Van Dyke obviously out for the season. He tore his ACL. Wisconsin secondary is really, really bad. And I think this is just a game where Miller Moss is going to go off and USC is just going to run the score up because they're going to be pissed off from last week. So I know sometimes after an emotional win, you want to take the other side, but really here, there's no part of this matchup to me that I think screams Wisconsin even has a chance of covering this spread. So this is a get right game to me for USC. And I think they're going to be pissed off, fired up, and I just like their offense a lot against this Wisconsin defense that's been underwhelming.
Absolutely. Parker, any thoughts on the USC and Wisconsin?
Yeah, I like that too. It's a pretty big line, but I wouldn't even call it necessarily a bounce back spot for them. I think that Miller Moss has been so good, and I think their ability to put up points is unquestionable. I could definitely see them covering here, so I like that play. I'm not sure if it's one I'm taking personally. I really like it though.
Yeah, I've considered taking it. Like you said, Miller Moss has been really good. Michigan made things extremely difficult on him last week. They beat him to a pulp in that game, and he was more impressive late down the game. It helped they were able to run the ball a little bit. That kind of opened up some of the passing game. But, I like what I've seen from Miller Moss. Thinking about the USC wide receivers running in space against that Wisconsin defense, Badgers should be terrified. Zachariah Branch and a slew of others. That's a big-time mismatch. Saw what Alabama did to Wisconsin. I know the Van Dyke injury early hurt them there. They weren't prepared for that at all, and they were kind of moving the football early. But I like USC there. I really do. Still undecided on if I'll personally tell that, but I definitely wouldn't be taking Wisconsin in this spot. That's the only side I would take is USC there. I like it. Good pick. Parker, what do you have as your next one, sir?
Yeah, so this is actually one of my favorite plays of the week. I've got Texas Tech minus 2.5 for Cincinnati.
Love it.
Bet them last week. That was such an easy pick. I just feel like this is the same betting situation for me. My model has them as a 75% win probability on a neutral field. They're hosting in Lubbock. It's a night game in Lubbock. Cincinnati was 1-3 in conference road games last season. Adjusted for opponents, this is pretty crazy. So adjusted for opponents, Cincinnati is 118th in the country in preventing explosive plays. There's also a mismatch between Tech at the 27th passing offense versus Cincinnati's 89th against the pass. I just expect this to be a high-scoring game. I think Tech really struggles on defense. Game being at home, I think that they'll be able to pull away and win this game by probably double digits.
Massive fan. We always give out a couple leans after we get out our 5 picks. Tech was going to be one of my leans. I think that's a great pick. I have personally went to Tech a couple times already on this show, and so that's why I was kind of trying to alter it up and stay away. I think that they win that game easily by double digits. I really do. I think they're kind of clicking right now. They're slowly getting a little bit healthier. They're figuring their secondary out. Not a great defense, but Cincinnati doesn't really have the firepower offensively to exploit them. Not in my opinion. Brandie's probably tired of talking about Texas Tech, but do you have any opinions on the Red Raiders in this spot?
I swear we've had somebody pick Texas Tech on here every week at this point.
Every week.
Honestly, I think it was week 2 when Cincinnati played Pitt, and it was just ever since that happened, I just haven't had a ton of faith in them. I did choose them last week in our Pick'em League against Houston because of how bad Houston has looked, but Cincinnati, I don't know. I'm not like super sold on them this year by any means. And so I can get behind it. I don't feel very strongly one way or another, but I can get behind that, especially with kind of how Texas Tech's improved since the beginning of the year. So
I predicted them to win the conference. I have to continue to ride them. They've rebounded from the early first 2 weeks. It looks to. I love the pick. Long story short, Parker, fantastic choice in my opinion. My third pick on the card is Maryland and Indiana. I think now, I will say with a little bit of caveat, I've been watching the weather in Bloomington. There's supposed to be a lot of rain Friday night, a little bit of rain Saturday evening. Lucky for us, this is 11 a.m. kickoff. But at the same time, I will be watching that, keeping an eye on it. But with the number of 53, the way that Indiana's offense has been going, they have a hell of a backfield over there, multiple backs that are just killing it. And I don't think that Maryland, they gave up some points to this Michigan State offense and a tight ball game. They kind of find a way to stay close. They probably, as Brandie knows, they probably should have won the game with Boston College last weekend. They kind of let Castellanos get real hot there at the end of that one and still it. But I think this total for me, I probably would have had it 58-60 somewhere. I just think both teams have a chance to get right around the 30 mark. Kelly Edwards has been playing really good for Maryland, 8 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Rourke's been playing really good for Indiana, 8 touchdowns and no picks. And so talking about offenses that have been protecting the football, a really good run game. And I don't think either defense has really been tested outside of, Michigan State, who was still kind of putting it together there early when Maryland got together with Jonathan Smith's Spartans. And so I think we see a lot of points in Bloomington. I'm rolling with the over 53. I think you could even find it at 52.5 in some spots. But unfortunately for me, I'd already took it at 53. Y'all have any thoughts, Maryland and Indiana? Can they get to the total or get to that over?
I watched Indiana. I haven't watched Maryland at all, so not a lot for me to say on this game.
Oh, no, you're great, man. Brandie?
I don't really have any commentary on the over-under. I like that. If I had to pick, I lean what you have, but I'm really sold on this Indiana team. They're not really being talked about quite yet. There was some chatter after that UCLA beatdown that they had. But yeah, I mean, I like it. I've watched Maryland a couple of times. I took Michigan State against Maryland and watched that game, and I think their offense can move the ball, and Michigan State had a good defense, and they were still able to move the ball a little bit. So, yeah, I like it.
I feel good about it. I really do, but I will be watching the weather, and if anything crazy happens, I might have a late last-minute hedge. But if
I think weather-wise, you may be okay. Like, they aren't going to get a ton of rain from that hurricane, I think, like you said, until later on Saturday, I think.
Well, there we go. I'm hoping maybe it won't be too windy. Winds will stay down. Everything will be nice and easy because I really do think we see both teams get close to the 30 mark. I feel really good about Indiana putting up mid-30s. I think I had it 35-30 when I was kind of going through and making an actual prediction. But, Brandie, play number 4 for you.
Play number 4 for me is Illinois plus 17.5 against Penn State. One of the big games that is happening this weekend. Illinois had a game last Friday with Nebraska. That was a thriller. So they have an extra day of rest compared to Penn State. And Penn State has kind of been up and down. They've like beat up on some teams that aren't very good this year, but have also struggled with some teams that are just okay this year. I think Bowling Green may be a little bit better than what people may think, but Penn State struggled with Bowling Green. And Illinois has a good O-line. Their quarterback has not thrown a single interception yet this season. So he has a 10-0 touchdown to interception ratio right now. And there's just something about this Penn State offense that there's something missing, even though they have a lot of really good people outside of just their receiving core. They don't have that just like one receiver this year like they usually always do. Their leading receiver right now is a tight end. So leading receiver from yards is a tight end. So I am a little worried about Illinois' defensive line. I think that Penn State's O-line can kind of manhandle them a little bit there, but At the end of the day, I think Illinois is good enough to cover this really, really long line, this long spread in a game to me that like it has playoff implications potentially with the start that Illinois has had. So definitely with the start that Penn State has had too, with both of these teams. So I think both are going to come show up and play. And I think that Illinois is going to keep this game close. I think they outright win. No, but I think that they're going to cover 17.5. Just feels like too long of a spread in a game that has a lot of implications in it and a lot of hype around it. And like Illinois has a decent O-line. They basically got all of the offensive line that Oklahoma like didn't want, and ended up being better for them. So they were in a lot of like transfer portal battles with their O-line, and I think their O-line's pretty decent. So
I mean, they haven't really they don't play pretty football, but like they find a way to get things done. You talk about the Nebraska win, talk about the Kansas win. That does seem like a lot of points and what could be, I know Penn State's made some adjustment scheme wise with the new OC. They're taking more shots, but at the same time, they've struggled to put up points against. I mean, I feel like they should have scored more against the Bowling Green team. At the time, it felt like they should have. Bowling Green obviously held A&M team pretty low total as well, but I like it. I think it's just a lot of points. Expect Penn State to win that game. Should be a ton of energy. I don't know. What did Bielema say? Did y'all hear his comments about the whiteout? Mm-hmm. Pretty aggressive. I don't know that's going to rile up too many Penn State fans, but I saw some Twitter warriors who were upset about it. What about you, Parker? Any state on Illinois and the points against?
Yeah, that's actually a play I was going to give as well.
There we go.
So, I've this season I've really tried to stay away from avoiding plays just because the public is heavily on them. The public is heavily on Illinois, and it. Not caring about that and choosing the right side has served me really well so far this season. I think that Illinois is a team that no one's really talking about. They should be. Altmaier was phenomenal last week. I think that he'll be fine. He's up against a much better defense at Penn State, in my opinion. Nebraska is not bad. That was a great environment. He played exceptionally well. I think he went like 21 for 27 last week.
Really good in the second half, man.
Downs, making throws that on third down that were crucial, was able to make them consistently. Offensively, I think that they're just good enough to put up enough points to cover a line like plus 18. I don't know why the line is like that. It's one of those things where if I step back and said if the line was plus 8, would I still take it? And I probably would. I am trying to find out why the line is what it is, and I can't figure it out. And so when I'm in these situations this season, I'm taking it.
Yeah, no, I like it. It's a ton of points. Like you said, it's okay. The public doesn't lose all the time. And Brandie, twice now, I kind of tried to fade the public with Tennessee, got absolutely burned both times. So shout out to Brandie for trusting. It's okay to go with the public sometimes. It's okay. A lot of points. I like that both of you guys are on that. Makes me feel even better about it. Hope it makes all the viewers feel even better about it. Let's do this, Parker. That kind of catches you up to we've each given out 3 plays, I guess. What would be your 4th play?
Yeah. All right. So you guys talk about leans later, then I'm going to go ahead and give my last official pick, and then maybe next time I can talk about leans.
Yeah, that's perfect, man. Yeah.
Cool. So this is a play that I'm not as confident in the others about, but I do really like Kansas State minus 4.5. So Oklahoma State's coming to town. Kansas State just got shut out really bad. I had a historical trend with Kleiman after a loss against the spread. I don't remember exactly what it was. Unfortunately, I couldn't get my trends app to work, but it's something like 70+% against the spread following a loss. Really, really good against the spread following a loss. On the other hand, Oklahoma State's offense has been a major disappointment. Ollie Gordon's averaging like 3.5 yards a carry, which is brutal. Adjusted for opponents, I do not trust this because the sample size is really small, but this is saying based on what this team can do running wise against other teams, how they have fared against those teams, Kansas State is a top 10 rushing defense.
Okay.
I anticipate Ollie Gordon having a essentially bounce back spot at some point, but I still think it won't be enough to propel them to where they need to be. Their quarterback, Bowman, has been terrible. As Texas fans, we've got to watch him for a long time. He just is not very good. I'm not sure why they were excited. I guess it's just because he has experience at this point, like 6 years, but he doesn't look very good. I think Kansas State at home can cover a 4.5 point spread. I think this is a huge bounce back opportunity for him, and I still believe in Avery Johnson.
He's definitely going to have to show a little something with his arm. I don't think Gundy will allow him to, beat him with his legs. And I mean, those numbers are great. I honestly was kind of leaning Oklahoma State for just because I don't think Gundy will allow him to do so. It kind of made me a little more hesitant there. Well done. Got to be a little bit of the revenge factor as well. Last year it was like on a Friday night, and K-State went into Stillwater and got whipped around a little bit, if I'm remembering correctly. But yeah, to climb him 70% after coming off a loss, that's pretty strong. Any thoughts, Brandie? Do you have anything?
I know we talked about this kind of like a little bit at the beginning, is that if you take away the ground game, then Avery kind of really struggles. But I don't know if Oklahoma State has what it takes to take away that ground game from him. Kleiman always drops like some kind of egg, and he looks like he kind of already did this year and this past weekend against BYU. So I know it's been bet. I think there's been money come in on Oklahoma State because this line was around 5.5 when I looked this afternoon. So with it being down to 4.5, I think that's fine. I don't hate it. I think this game is just going to be like an absolute shit show of a game. So I'm excited to watch it. Yeah, I don't hate it.
Yeah,
I can get behind it.
Another trend that I forgot I saw earlier: the home team has won of the last 6 games. The home team has won the last 5. No, I'm sorry, has won 5 of 6, not 5 straight.
Okay, I would say it's last year. I know the home team. Yeah, I mean, it seems like they've always traditionally played pretty good games. But I can definitely fade Alan Bowman. It's an easy fade, and so great pick. I like that. You said that's your last official pick, Brandie. I know you have one more. I've got 2 more here. I got the Arkansas and the A&M under 52 right now. Today they announced TJ Shanahan for A&M, the starting center, would miss this game. He was only moved to center because they lost their starting center. I guess was it week 1 I think it was week 1 with Notre Dame. Still haven't really figured out who's starting at quarterback for A&M. I don't think it matters. I don't think that they're going to have now Arkansas has given up some yards. They've given up things on the ground, given up a little bit in the air. The defense has been shaky at times, but I don't think I think this is a big game for Arkansas. They should be undefeated. They got somehow left Stillwater with a loss in that game. A lot of motivation for Sam Pittman and Arkansas. I think we'll see a better effort. Maybe a little more discipline on defense. A&M's offense has struggled. If it's Marcel Reed, I think they commit a lot of numbers to the run game, try to take away his legs before he can really get going. He did not look great after that first quarter last week against Bowling Green as far as throwing the ball goes. And then on the other side, I'm not sure that Taylon Green and Jaquindon Jackson are going to have a lot of room really to operate in the Arkansas offense. I think A&M's defense is pretty solid. I like their defensive line, their front 7. I think they'll give that Arkansas offensive line, who's made a lot of mistakes early in the season, I think they'll give them fits. And A&M has been a little susceptible to giving up some big plays, but I think that they'll probably Elko will go in knowing that that's kind of the only way that Arkansas, in my opinion, can kind of burn them. They'll try to make them go the length of the field. And Arkansas and Bobby Petrino, they don't want to do that. They're looking for the big plays, the explosives. And I just don't think that they're I don't think they're built to have a ton of explosive plays against A&M's defense. But I've trusted A&M on this channel before. They've let me down. I think we see a game probably play out somewhere like 24-20. I'm hoping so, which would put us well under the 52 total. Any thoughts on the Aggies and the Pigs going under?
I like it. I'm a huge Travis Williams fan, Arkansas's defensive coordinator, and their defense looked pretty good last week against Auburn. Auburn doesn't have a good offense at all, but they still looked good last week. They looked good too, or they've looked good really in every game that they've played. There's really the thing that's caught in Arkansas is their offense just gets off the field too quickly for that defense. But yeah, I like it. I think Arkansas can easily hold A&M there. Hopefully, I don't know as much about A&M's defense, but I know that Arkansas's offense isn't anything to write home about. So,
well, I think Arkansas gave up 3 sacks and 7 tackles for loss against Auburn, and I think A&M's got a little better front than the Tigers do. No offense, Brandie.
I know.
I'll take it personally. I know.
I know. I do know that.
Well, I think A&M's that front 7 in particular gives Arkansas a lot of fits. Doesn't really let Taylon Green, who's been fun to watch. I don't think he gets going in this one. Would love an Arkansas win. Any thoughts on that one, Parker?
Yeah, man, I think it's gonna be a really good game. Model has A&M winning the game. I'm not really sure what to think about it. I think it's going to be really interesting as a Texas fan to watch both of the teams since we play them both.
Yeah.
I think that A&M's defense is really, really good, personally.
I do too.
So I could definitely see them holding Arkansas to lower points. I'd be interested to see if Marcel Reed has some of the same offensive struggles that we saw against Bowling Green, or maybe Bowling Green actually is good. I just don't think that they are. So it'll be an interesting game.
Yeah, I agree. I think I really think Arkansas does have a shot to win that one in a low-scoring game. Time will tell. Brandie, what's your last play on your card, ma'am?
I know somebody said to take Louisville over Notre Dame, but I'm going the Fighting Irish -6.5 at home against Louisville this weekend. I had my one loss last week was Georgia Tech +10.5 against Louisville. Like we talked about, they were tied going into the fourth quarter until that crazy missed field goal for a touchdown. Georgia Tech outgained them throughout the game. Georgia Tech won the turnover battle too. Really just everything went Louisville's way in the last half of that game. And I was just not completely impressed with Louisville. And I think we have a lot to learn about this Louisville team, and we have less to learn about Notre Dame. I know they lost to Northern Illinois this season, but against Purdue and Miami of Ohio, they look like they've gotten their kind of rhythm back to them. And there's just a lot about this defensive team from Louisville that I have a ton of questions about. Notre Dame, I think, has one of the best defensive units in the country. I have no questions about their defense. It's really their offense. And so I think this is a game that Notre Dame can just take off with because, like I said, Louisville's defense just is not – it's not good. Their effort looked bad, too, on Saturday. So I think this is a mismatch for Louisville on that side of the ball. And I don't know if Louisville is going to be able to move the ball very well against this Notre Dame defense. And I think Notre Dame will be able to move the ball against kind of a poor Louisville defense, which isn't really what we know Louisville to be historically. So it's kind of surprising, but
I like it. I personally think that, Louisville, without that kick six moment last week against Georgia Tech, there's a good chance they drop that game. Maybe not a good chance, but definitely a chance. And talking about a 10-point swing right there. I personally like it. I think Notre Dame's very focused. Marcus Freeman's woken them up a little bit after a very humiliating loss to Northern Illinois. They know that they can probably still find a way to get in the playoffs, whether they might be deserving so or not. They're going to have to whip a lot of people. So I like that. This is a big chance for them to kind of reassert themselves and say, hey, that was all a fluke. We're a lot better than that. Any thoughts on that, Parker?
Yeah, a lot of things have been said. I also really like this. Was considering playing it for sure. But so, yeah, they're definitely fired up since that loss. They've looked a lot better since the loss. Additionally, yes, the Louisville game, that was really a game that Georgia Tech could have and should have won. I really do fault the coach for some terrible decisions, Georgia Tech. I think there were some times when he went for it on fourth when he probably shouldn't have, and there were times when he kicked the field goal on fourth when he probably shouldn't have. Additionally, there were times when maybe he should have trusted Haynes King to throw the ball, like on some third and longs. Instead ran up the middle, thinking that he'd go for it on fourth or something, and then decided not to anyway. So I'm really not sure and burning timeouts early in the third when he didn't have to.
Yes.
Yeah. Setting himself up for failure in so many ways. And I really think that, and I was on the sour end of that bet. So that was a really disappointing game to watch. And I really do think that in a lot of ways, Georgia Tech, I'm not going to say was the better team because I try to tell myself that the better team doesn't always in reality the better team doesn't always win, but I try to when I'm betting just say the better team didn't win, but
it feels a little better that way.
It might have been the better team that day, at least if the coaching would have been a little bit smarter.
I like it. I definitely agree with you. They could have and maybe should have won that game. Definitely had their opportunities. I think Notre Dame, agree with you, Brandie, there. It's her last pick is what, Notre Dame -6 and
-6.5.
6.5. Okay, -6.5. And I like it a lot. Have about 4 minutes left. I do have one more show to get to, but I'm going to drop my last pick here and give a quick recap or get a quick opinion from you guys. I have Virginia Tech in the 19.5 Friday night in Coral Gables. I think that Miami, they're looking really good. Obviously, they just dusted South Florida. Virginia Tech does have 2 losses that appear bad on paper, but Vanderbilt's a lot better than given credit for after they beat Virginia Tech. And then losing to Rutgers. Hey, I was high on Rutgers. I think Brandie was somewhat high on Rutgers coming into the year. And I'm not going to sit here and say that's a terrible loss. Obviously, we talked about them waking up in the fourth quarter, putting up 19 points. They're going to have to find a way to slow down Cam Ward somewhat. Easier said than done, obviously. I think that Miami has a West Coast road trip next week to Stanford. I think that they'll be okay with running some clock here in the second half on this game, staying healthy. I got them winning this game by 13 or 14, not the 19.5. Think I'm spot on? Think I'm way off?
Virginia Tech is horrible, but really weird stuff happens in Thursday and Friday night games, and I almost always lean an underdog in one of those weird Thursday and Friday night spots, just because usually it's off a short rest for the most part. And Miami, like, even though the score looked really, really bad by the end of that South Florida game, it was a pretty emotional back and forth, like the entire first half of that game until Miami just blew the door open in that game. So I watched a good bit of that. I think Cam Ward's going to end up in New York. He's a Heisman candidate. I don't hate it only because weird stuff happens in weekday games. So that's really all I have there. That's kind of all I got there.
Yeah.
It feels like Miami.
I don't have a side. I could definitely see it going either way. It's a question of how good is Miami. I think that they're pretty good. But are they good enough to cover that spread on a Friday night game? And it'll be interesting to watch.
I'm really hoping a very motivated Virginia Tech shows up, obviously. A lot of preseason maybe hype around them. Kyron hasn't been very great with his arm, or very impressive, rather, but he's been pretty good with his legs. And I'm hoping that, hey, we can get enough extra first downs with our legs, run some clock, get a couple touchdowns in this game. Maybe Miami wins it 31-14, something. I would take it. Now, holding Miami to 31 does seem like a tall task, considering they're averaging like over 600 yards a game. Much better competition this week. And that Florida game, I mean, it is Florida. But, guys, thank you both very much for being here. Parker, it was a blast to have you, man. I think you killed it and did an excellent job. Brandie, obviously, you're hot right now, 4-1. We're rolling, leading the big pick'em group. Vibes are good. After a rough opening week to the channel, we've turned it around. 16-13 overall record, but these last 2 weeks have been a lot of fun. Y'all sign us off, guys, and I'll post all our picks. I know we kind of went over them and kind of getting out of here quick, but I'll post all of our picks on the timeline here shortly.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. A lot of fun.
Man.
Yeah, thanks for having me as well. Did you want me to read off my picks before you hop off?
Yeah, you can. Go ahead.
Okay, cool. Kentucky first half plus 10.5, Illinois plus 17.5, USC minus 15.5, Kansas minus 1.5, and Notre Dame minus 6.5 are my 5 picks this week.
I love that. I've got those written down. I'm telling most of them, if not all. Parker, do you want to read off yours real quick if you have them?
Yeah, I've got Duke money line, which is minus 140. I've got Texas Tech minus 2.5. That's my favorite play of the week. And then Kansas State minus 4.5 hosting Oklahoma State. Then one lean I didn't get to. I'm not going to talk about it, but I lean Bama plus 2. I don't know if I'm going to make that an official play or not.
We have 2 leans for the Tide. We did talk about that game a little bit. I'll back you up there, brother. I think Jalen Melrose finds a way to get it done. My 5 real quick, Virginia Tech plus 19.5. I know we're trusting the Hokies, who have been pretty bad, but we're rolling with it. A&M Arkansas under 52. Maryland, Indiana over 52.5 or 53, depending where you look. Minnesota plus 9.5. Ole Miss minus 17.5. We'll see. Last week I didn't feel great about my card. Very easily could have got out there 4-1. I'm trusting a roll with some Minnesota plus 9.5 and Virginia Tech plus 19.5. These I expect these guys to get there, find a way. But, guys, thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel. Like this video. Show Parker and Brandie some love. They were fantastic, as always. Parker, would love to have you back sometime. Brandie, thank you again. And we'll see you all next time, guys.